Hey there and welcome back to another Dragon Prince video. And today I want to talk about Callum and Callum's likely story progressing through the remainder of the show's seasons. Now at the end of the most recent season, if you can remember, you have to cast your mind back pretty far considering how long the most recent wait's been, we saw Callum become the first known human to unlock the ability to use standard elemental based magic as opposed to having to rely on dark magic to get the job done, as he created himself some wings to save his girlfriend Rayla from becoming a splat on the pavement after they fell off a mountaintop fighting Viren. And this really felt like the culmination of a lot of Callum's prior story. When we first meet Callum, he doesn't really have all that much going for him. He's not much of a warrior, he gets bullied by his servants, and only his stepdad, brother, and aunt seem to care about him on a deeper level. Only they seem to want to engage with him. But the problem is that his aunt's often away fighting elves, and his stepdad's the king, so he doesn't really have a whole lot of time to help him work through his issues. So, right from the get-go, we see that Callum doesn't have all that much direction in his life, and is struggling to find a place where he fits in. He doesn't have that anchor in his life like characters like Soren, or Claudia, or even Ezran has at the start of Season 1. Soren's definitely destined to be a prominent soldier, a captain of the guard type character. Claudia is following her father's footsteps into becoming a mage and will eventually probably replace him as advisor to the king one day. Probably during the reign of Ezran when he's an adult. And obviously, Ezran is the crown prince of Catalis, so one day, when his father either dies or abdicates the throne, he's going to follow him as king and rule the entire kingdom. But Callum doesn't have one of those ready-made paths. He isn't a fighter, and he wasn't born to be one of the most powerful people in the world. So what does he do? Why, he does one of the more reasonable things in the story. He uses his head. He realizes he can't do certain things as well as other people, and he certainly won't sit the throne. But why does that mean he can't do something with his life? Why can't he still be important or find his own path? And so he tries to get Claudia, who he's also kind of crushing on at this point in the story, to teach him some magic. Because he thinks that this is the path that will suit him best. But unfortunately for him, the only magic that humans can use without the use of primal stones, which allow them to use the normal primal magic, is dark magic. And from a certain point of view, dark magic isn't all that bad. It's essentially exchanging a creature's life force for energy. And I know there's a lot of discussion in the fandom as to the actual morality of this sort of thing, discussion as to whether it's even that bad, because realistically, how different is it compared to killing animals for food, or clearing their habitat to build houses or farms? How different is it to burning their decomposed remains as fossil fuels? From a certain point of view, you could argue that dark magic is simply an analogy for industrial progress. It's not good, it's not evil. It's simply a tool for progress. It's completely and utterly amoral, and it's more the intention that it's used for that determines the morality of the situation, not the action itself. But that is probably a more meta take on things, because in my opinion, the show positions you to think that dark magic's bad. Other magic, good, but dark magic, bad. After all, when you use dark magic, your face gets all messed up, becoming deathly pale, a disgusting milky white, like a corpse that's been rotting in the river. Your pupils get so massive that it looks like you've gone on an acid trip, and you speak like you desperately need a priest to come to your house with some holy water, a crucifix, and the Bible to exorcise a demon from your soul. So, based on all of that, and the fact that Callum rejects using it, and that the main characters who do use it are unrepentant villains like Viren, Erebos, or even to an extent Claudia, that despite what people in the fandom say from a meta point of view, it's clear that it's meant to be evil in the story for the most part. And so, this is what spurs Callum into wanting to learn different varieties of magic, because he personally finds the use of dark magic to be morally reprehensible, because he finds killing another life form to be troubling. He still does it once or twice, but he hates doing it. And so, when he gets access to the Sky Primal Stone and realizes he can do magic, well, it feels like an all-around win for him, and he slowly begins to learn how to do sky magic. And over time, he's required to learn more and more, until he's forced to destroy his Primal Stone in order to help hatch Zim, seemingly ending his journey to become a proper mage. Until he forms a connection to the Sky Arcanum, which allows him to directly draw power from the sky in order to perform magic, becoming the first known human who's able to use primal magic without a use of a conduit like a primal stone. So, Callum, in the end, turned out to be quite the special snowflake. And since he connected with the Sky Arcanum, he's slowly begun to master sky magic. And Jesus, the Aang parallels are strong when you think about it like that. Anyway, at the end of the most recent season, Callum breaks through a mental block on quite an advanced sky magic spell to grow wings and save the day. Which brings me to my question. Are we going to see Callum go on an Avatar-like journey to begin to master all the various different primal magics? Is he going to use sky magic and moon magic, sun magic, earth magic, ocean magic, star magic? Because this is kind of where my worries for the story kick in. Callum's journey so far has been interesting. It's been rewarding to watch him go from the outcast type character with no real skill at much besides drawing, to beginning to walk down the path to mastering the Sky Arcanum. And honestly, whilst he doesn't know that many Sky spells right now, from a narrative point of view, I think that his ability to summon wings is a symbolic mastery of the Sky Arcanum. Is he technically a master? No, probably not. But I feel like he's unlikely to encounter any more difficulty with his spells in this school of magic. It's not going to continue to tie into his story too heavily. So realistically, where does he go from here? Well, to me, it feels like it only makes sense from a narrative point of view for him to connect a further Arcanum and then symbolically master them too, much like Aang does in The Last Airbender. He's already doing some moon magic using some moon gems or whatever they're called. His aunt has a bit of connection to fire elves, so he'll likely end up learning some fire magic, and I feel like it only makes sense that he'll also develop his skills in ocean and earth magic too. Of course, some of these are going to come to him easier than others, I would expect. And for the most part, I think that's fine. I'm not hugely enamored with the idea, but mostly because I feel like they're setting him up to be too much of a special snowflake. He'll master all the primal sources in order to compete with Erebos. Honestly, I don't see any way around that. And they're probably going to pull a Last Airbender and go on a big journey to the different cultures to learn how to wield their magic. That's fine. But the problem is, he still needs star magic too. Erebos is a star-touched elf, and one of the rare ones that wields star magic, which is considered the most powerful and mysterious primal source. So already, that feels like major foreshadowing, that old mate Callum has to learn this too. And whilst that does sound like a fun and intriguing plot point, I'm worried that the story is going to get to the stage where no other characters matter, because Callum, Zim and Erebos are going to be insanely overpowered compared to everybody. I feel like The Last Airbender did it best in this regard, keeping Aang as the metaphorical big-time secret weapon, but giving the other characters things to do and enemies to fight. But not every show follows this formula, and often characters are raised up at the expense of others. And I just don't want that to happen here. It would just feel wasteful. Plus, at the same time, it feels like they're at major risk of rushing this storyline. The show's not going to run forever, and he obviously needs to be stronger to take on the big bad guys at the end. But he isn't the Avatar. He doesn't have some mystic reason to explain why he can learn so quickly. So if they add one now, it will just add to that special snowflake feel and derail the narrative. So in the end, maybe a time skip would be best, eh? But anyway, that's all I have to say on this topic. And so those have been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think about Callum's story arc? Think he's at risk of becoming too OP? Or is everything fine from your point of view? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and let me know.